Well, hello, welcome everybody. I'm Robin here and with Colleen.
Hello.
And today we're really excited to have back Frans Stiene. Hi, Frans.
Hi, thank you for inviting me again. Very excited about it.
Yes, we love to have you on. You're just a delight,
Oh, thank
if
you.
I'm honest. That's just a good way to say it. So many of you might know Franz. Like I said, we've had him on a previous episode. He is of International House of Reiki. And so we're really glad to have him back today to have these conversations. So, Franz, oh, go ahead, Colleen.
I was just going to say he's a longtime Reiki master and expert in the field, if I can say that for you.
Yes, yes, very true. So,
Mhm.
Franz, because it's been a little bit of time, why don't we just go ahead and get started with your story and how you came to Reiki? And then we know the conversation will flow from there.
Yeah, I've been teaching now 25 years full time around the world. And when I first learned the system of Reiki was in Nepal, Kathmandu, with an English teacher. And I wasn't doing so well physically and emotionally. I think sometimes we all have that, and that's how we come to maybe these kind of teachings. And then actually really quickly, we had a Reiki center in Darjeeling in India where we actually did a lot of volunteer treatments and things like that. And it was a great learning curve for me. Also because there was a lot of other healers around in that area, Tibetan Buddhist, Nepali, Hindu, you name it, shamanistic healers. And all of them had like something very common, and it was their own very serious meditation practice. And I wasn't really taught that within the system of Reiki. So that triggered for me really like a surge. Why wasn't that? We just had the attunement in that the way I was taught at that time, and you did some hands-on healing on yourself, and you had some symbols and mantras, and that was it. So then in 2001, I went for the first time to Japan, and since then I've been going regularly to Japan. And since 2012, I found a priest, and he lives in a very small little monastery in the mountains of Japan, and I've been training with him, and that really has shifted also a lot of my perception, not just intellectual, but also his methods are really, you sit on your butt, you do you practice like, I don't know, from you wake up at 4 in the morning till midnight, and then you sleep a few hours, and you do it again, and that's then for 10 days. So it's pretty intense, but it really helped me to gain very different insights also about Mikosui, but also when we look at Mikosui's teachings, how they're really in line with a lot of these traditional Japanese spiritual teachings.
Yeah. One of the things that I love about you, Franz, is that you have this very dedicated, disciplined practice, and then yet you also have this playfulness about you.
Yeah.
And you see that
Well,
because I, of course, follow you on Instagram and have
yeah.
met, well, I think Colleen, you met him in person, right? Did you meet him in
I
person in
don't think we
Japan?
have.
No, I
Oh,
don't
okay. I
think
wasn't sure
we.
if you were
Maybe
at
one
the
day, one
I
day.
was
conference.
like, oh,
Yeah.
I hope I would remember.
Well, I
Yeah,
follow you
I
on social and, I know that you post also a lot about your life, and
yeah.
you also have this playfulness about you and even a playfulness about your practice in a way, but then you also have this disciplined aspect, that's a part of your practice like you were just describing. I don't really have a question in that except for the fact that I love these two sides that you bring into your practice and into your life.
Well, I think what really triggered it, first of all, I think when I was living in India and Darjeeling, and it's in the mountains, and there's a lot of Tibetan Buddhist monasteries, small. And you could go there in the morning, and then you sit there as a foreigner, and these Tibetan monks and nuns were doing these practices, and these little kids were running around, and then the they were like very serious, and then they were all laughing about something, and then they go back to that seriousness again. And then when I was talking to these Tibetan priests and priestesses where I was living, and these monks and nuns, they all had this really fun quality to them, that this spark. And then when I went to Japan, I saw the same thing. Like, for example, my teacher, he's super, super serious. And then he's got this wickedly sense of humor. Like, for example, one morning I wake up, we have to wake up at 4 a.m. in the morning, and I think, what is going on? What do I hear? So I take the little stairs down, and then they're in the kitchen. Here's the priest with these yellow big rubber gloves doing the dishes, and full on is like on repeat, "We are the world, we are the children," and he's singing along, like, and then literally like an hour later, he's got these robes on, and he's like this, and it's this wonderful. Yeah, I see this also very much like, for example, by the Dalai Lama, or one great example also was my Taoist teacher. I practiced with a Taoist teacher and for 12 years, and she was brought up in a Taoist community in China when she was 3 by her grandmother. And the first time I started to teach overseas the system of Reiki, then when I came back, we had our sessions, and then she said, "Frans, did you had fun?" I said, "Yeah, I went to a museum and we did this." "No, no, no." She said, "Did you had fun in the class?" And I go, "Yeah, I stood on a chair and made a joke and we did this and this." And said, "Make sure, no matter where you are on your journey, that you always keep that in it, because this also helps you to stay lighthearted. Don't take that spirituality too serious. And make sure then, like Mikasui, he says today, hey, in the Reiki Precepts, and today means interwoven in our daily life." So yeah, for me, that is really important, I think. Of course, we can be serious in our practice and dedicated, but at the same time, I think also this is so wonderful when we look at Mikasui, and in Reiki 3, we have this symbol and mantra, and if we translate it, it means great bright light. And in fact, I'm living in this big apartment with really big windows, and at the moment the sun is filtering through the screens, and it's playing, like there's a little bit of wind, and it's playing here on the plant or on the bookshelves or on the trees outside. And I think we can see this light on the river, for example, when it plays, and yet it can also be very serious, but it's this wonderful lightness of being.
That is just such an important message in today's world. And I mean, it always is, but I do think that we are trying to move into that state of mind and state of being, particularly in spirituality. I think so many of us have been taught that, our spiritual practices are serious.
Yeah,
You have to be disciplined, dedicated, devoted. And actually, in a lot of the traditions, not specifically Reiki, but other traditions, I think there's even a belief in suffering to be closer to
absolutely.
God.
Yeah.
And so that is a huge shift.
Yeah. And then I think also when you I looked this up once because I was interested in it. And then I looked at the spiritual clowns, in these shamanic traditions and
Yeah,
Native American
yeah.
Indian traditions, and where you had these men and women who were actually super funny, but at the same time in their craziness, like for example, you also in Tibetan Buddhism you have what they call like the crazy yogis, and because they felt so free, they actually did ridiculous things, and sometimes so ridiculous that the person they were with were actually a little bit shocked, but in that shock there was that shell cracked open so that their inner light would come out. And I found it very fascinating.
Well, I had an experience like that in Tibet. We were in Sakya and ended up with the Anis, and they were chanting. And then afterwards, they invited us to walk down the hill with them. And they were just laughing and
Yeah.
making jokes. And in particular, they were teasing my husband and calling him Yak Man. And then they'd all laugh and they'd get us all laughing and him laughing. And so you're so right. That's exactly, I don't think I ever put it together that that was just because in Tibet, I found the people just had that really natural joy. Like,
Yeah.
you see it in their
And
faces and their smiles and
I think also for me, sometimes when we think about this system of Reiki, we think about hands-on healing. But sometimes the other day I walked somewhere and this couple I didn't know and they come towards me and I smiled. They smiled at me and hi, hi. And then I actually, their smiles were so beautiful that I turned around and they turned around and we both waved at each other. And it was just like, wow, I feel so light suddenly. And I was just teaching in Italy, and I was had a few free days, of course, because it's so nice. So I was sitting down. I would just sat down on the beach, and there's a woman sitting on a bed, literally like 5 meters away from me, and she turns around, and I smile at her, and literally 2 seconds later, she's sitting next to me. And then later on, it turns out actually she was living 10 minutes from where I live in Holland, peculiar. But, and then she goes like, actually, I came to you because your smile was so inviting and open. And so for me, sometimes when we think about healing, we think it only has to be with the hands. But I think when we have that openness in our whole being, then for some people that can already be a tremendous amount of healing. And then I think also we give a great example of not taking everything so serious.
I was just talking about that, and we kind of had mentioned the holidays beforehand and how during the holidays it can be so stressful for people, and it's not always a pleasant experience for everybody. There can be people that are going through their own journeys with the holidays, and how much Reiki helps us to, when I invite it before I go into like the grocery store or something like that. And like you said, if you can just offer a smile, like that kindness is also the, well, quote unquote, the way of Reiki, right? Is the name of one of Franz's books. Is that too is a part of it. And where it can support us as practitioners is we can have it, channel through us and support us so that we can go into the store in that brighter light and offer a smile to a stranger. Or I always think that to the checkers, I'm always
Yeah,
like extra kind to the checkers because what they probably take on from people is a lot. They take on the stress of people and the busyness. And so I agree with that. I think that that is such an important part of our practices. It's not just when we're in a session, when we're in this teaching or those places where we're in that, kind of Reiki bubble. It's also when we're living our life as well.
yeah.
How do we offer that connection? How do we offer that light? How do we offer that love to people? And not everybody's going to just receive Reiki, but everybody can receive a smile. Everybody can
Yeah.
receive openness and a kind heart.
I think this is why the Reiki precepts they hang behind me in Japanese are so important, because when we really look at it, Mikasui says today. So he didn't say on your meditation pillow or in a Reiki room, he says today. And this is a very common statement in Zen Buddhism or Tendai Buddhism. And today they mean that interwoven in all the actions we do today. And then, of course, we have do not anger, do not worry, be grateful. Then we can say practice diligently, or we can say be true to your way and your being, depending on how we translate it, and then be kind to yourself and others. And I think when we think about this, then sometimes we think we can only practice on a meditation pillow, and it becomes a little bit not infused in our life. But actually, if we can infuse even the precepts and as much as possible, as if we can do this in our daily life, then already we're training when we go to the cash register and be kind, then that is ultimately our practicing the system of Reiki, and we're training ourselves. And then I think also if we do that and then other people see us, then we're a great example for another person. And then we're actually already teaching without teaching.
Well, and I think we receive it also. I know in my own experience that
Yeah.
I feel like I receive that energy back from people because it's just what's flowing through and is my kind of my life experience because of it.
Absolutely. And then for me also, we can flow more with that life. Eh? I had just had an image in my mind. Sometimes I use it. You know, when you have a statue, like made from clay, and it's hollow inside, and we have, say, open eyes and a mouth and the ears and the nose. And so if there's no candle underneath, no light shines out. But if we put a candle underneath, then automatically the light will shine out of the eyes or the nose or the mouth or whatever we speak or hear. Or and I think the more we realize this great bright light inside of us, this inner luminosity, that we are Reiki, and then becomes more easier to bring that with us in all we do.
That's
Yeah.
such a great visual, that to think of it that way. And one of the things that I love about your teachings too is that it is really about being Reiki. It's not, I mean,
Yeah,
it does help that we receive the attunement, and it is this for our human minds and our human being of being able to kind of access it, that we have that attunement process,
yeah.
but that it is also inside, and that we do have this resource that can help us to come to that remembering. And I love that because even, when we're struggling, even a tea light can help illuminate that. Even just the smallest
Yeah.
light can
Yeah, the
illuminate that.
smallest candle.
Yeah.
And yeah, this is I like in Mrs. Takada's diaries. He's talking, and I think it's in 1936, 37, or somewhere around that time. That Reiki lies at the bottom of your stomach, and what is traditionally the Hara or the Dantian, and that we have to concentrate and meditate to let it come out from within. And actually, this might be interesting too. Recently, there was a translation being published from a 1933 book by Tomita, and in quite a lot of emphasis is also placed that we have to go in and work with the Hara or the Tanden to really find that stability. And for me, this is where we put that candle in a way, the candle underneath in our body, just below our belly button, and then it can illuminate our whole being. And then I think I always say in my classes too, I said, we cannot always walk around town and do hands-on healing on everybody because we get arrested or whatever happens. But through practice, we can walk around with the mindset of the precepts, and that we can bring that in all we do. And if I think we all know that if I'm very stressed or worried or angry, then we feel like an ice cube. But when we're more light and we let go of this anger and worry, we feel more lighter, we feel more open, we are more in the flow, we laugh quicker as well. We don't take things so heavy. We and therefore then automatically when we walk in our daily life, we walk lighter in life.
Can you describe how you just started to talk about the fourth precept and you gave a second definition that really caught my attention? Can you kind of
Mm.
go into that?
I
That's
I
always
have to
been
say,
one.
I was gonna say that we had you when we had you on the episode last time, that translation of it I it has been so helpful to me. I really resonate with that.
Yeah, so
Yeah, the tricky bit, I think, with kanji is that one kanji can mean 10 different words. And so, depending on the translator, how we translate it, and it depends on the intention of the author who wrote it down. So, for example, the word gyo in gyo hakame, we often translate as work hard.
yeah.
But gyo can also mean practice. So if we translate it as work, then a lot of us these days, we think, oh, that's my 9 to 5 job and that's work
Right.
hard. But if we translate it as practice and then maybe practice diligently, that's also another element, then what do we have to practice diligently? Oh, no anger, no worry, being grateful, being kind. So that's another one. And then gyo can also mean karma. So what are we planting today? And that is, for me, when we look at karma, it's actually in Japan, I like this phrase. They say you don't have to go to the past to see what you did. Look at what you're now, because what you're now is the seeds from what you planted in the past. And you don't have to look in the future, because you look at the present moment, because this is where we're planting what is going to manifest in the future. So I always say, if I plant an apple seed, I get apples, I don't get bananas. And if I plant a pineapple seed, I don't get apples, I get pineapples. So what are we planting today? So Mikusui says, today, do not plant anger and worry. Plant gratefulness. So then when we look at Gyo Hakame, Hiroshi Doi actually, he translated in one of his teachings, he said, do what you're meant to do. I quite like that too. But so do what you're meant to do, or be true to your way. But be true to your way, then sometimes when we only see be true to my way, then I say I'm going to be angry because that's my way. So in Japanese, you have then be true to your way and your being. And this is like this. The way is things what is changing all the time. So my way today is that I had a different breakfast than I had normally have. So it's something is changing. Or for example, if we look at hands-on healing, maybe I fell over and today I do a lot of hands-on healing on my knee, and tomorrow as well, but then that pain is gone, and now I don't do hands-on healing on my knee, but on another spot. So the way is something what is constantly changing. But then we have to infuse that with our being. So what is that being? Is that great bright light, or Mikusui describes that really beautifully. So whatever we do today, what is constantly changing, like one moment we brush our teeth, the next moment we talk to a friend, the next moment we write an email, but we infuse it with our being, the state of our essence, what is no anger, no worry, being grateful and being kind. So being true to your way and your being is kind of twofold. And my teacher explains this in a beautiful way. Let me grab it actually. Here. And he always has this bright sphere, what I like. And so this is kind of the essence. This is our great bright light, our Reiki, for example, being Reiki. But if I put this in front of me now, it looks white. And if I would put it in front, let me see if I have something here, a different color. Oh yeah, here. If I put it in front of, here it looks black, right? And then if I put it in front of this yellow or orange coaster, then it's orange. But this stays the same. Yeah. So this is our essence, what stays the same. That is, as much as possible, compassion, kindness, love, no anger, no worry. But the actions constantly is changing. That makes sense?
Yeah.
So I think that way of translating it, it makes it so beautiful, because then whatever we do today, moment to moment is changing, but infuse it with your being, the essence. What is that? That kindness and openness and love. So no matter what happened, we try to maintain today this kindness and openness, this stability, a bit like that.
Well, I really like that definition. Thank you so much, because in the translation I originally learned also, 25 years ago, was the work hard.
Yeah.
Well, that's one of the things that about being serious and playful that I was definitely raised that everything I wanted had to be hard work.
Yeah.
So I've always had a little bit of a dissonance with that particular precept, um, because it's like, well, I love that I can work hard, but I also don't want it to be because it's like a part of me that needs to work on not working hard. So
Well, I think so. And I think specifically as we are before a little bit talking about these days, we're so busy, we constantly running around and like, then we have of course, these phones and we like bombarded. I had a friend here 2 days ago and her phone just made all these dings constantly. And I'm like, geez, it would drive me completely nuts. Mine is on silent all the time. And you can see she's constantly busy, constantly, even if she had a day off. And I think, wow. So that in fact we can relax. And another way I like by that true to your way and your being is also again with this, like it's a great example because if I put it again in front of me, it's white, but if I would put it in front of you, it will be blue. And if I put it in front of you, it will be black. So that also means that we expressing it, Colleen will express it differently than Robyn, for example, or than me. And we can see this already in hands-on healing, how we express this slightly different. One person needs to sit, the other person likes to stand. So, but as much as possible, even that we have differences because we also come from different countries, right? Different ideas, different upbringing, that the essence is the same. What is this? Essence is Reiki. So the Reiki is the same, but the way we express it, the way you express it in your teachings might be slightly different than mine, and that's fine. But the essence of it is still the same.
Yeah, you have the energy and then you have the
Yeah,
techniques
yeah,
that are going to be. Yeah, I like that. Yours might be orange, ours might be brown or whatever it's reflecting. Yeah.
yeah,
I also have always resonated with a part of what you have said with it, that as far as that precept is concerned, of being your authentic self.
yeah,
And, I mean, I know how you're saying it's what you're saying with your authentic self isn't like, necessarily my authentic self is being angry all the time. So I need to,
no.
it's more of that authentic and pure spirit that's below our life's layers and things like that. And when I think of it, because I'm kind of the same as Colleen, and then especially raised in this hustle culture, this busy culture that we're raised
Yeah,
in, that it is, when you say devoted to your work, it is easy for me to go into devoted to this work. But
yeah,
if I can look at that slightly different, which I think, like you said, is how it's even meant to be understood, and it has a lot of different meanings. Be devoted to my being, be devoted to my authentic self, be my
yeah,
authentic self, even if that's just for today. And how that can change is that is a very healing way for me to look at it, to understand, to practice it, because I can switch so easily into that kind
yeah.
of capitalistic way of thinking of like, oh, I got to be devoted to my work.
And then I think also what you say is beautiful because then we can relax. And I think when we relax with diligent, we relax and yet we still practice, but it doesn't have to be like, then I think we're already halfway there, right? Because I was actually thinking about the playfulness. I was speaking to John Cleese. You know John Cleese? Like a
The
famous
the actor?
actor. Yeah,
Yeah.
oh,
yeah.
okay.
He's a friend of a friend, and so and he was. I was actually texting this friend, and he said, "Oh, John is here," and so we were engaging a little bit, and it was really funny because this came then through this friend, and he said, actually, John makes people laugh because he feels that then they are more open for what he actually wants to tell. And we can see this too when in a class, when we see people laughing, they start to breathe from their belly, because most of the time we laugh. So that's already more grounding in the body. So we have this big belly laugh, and then we feel more open because there's this laughter happening. And so I think also when how you described it, not that we can soften that tightness of work, 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 hard, 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 and we like this, then that energy is not going to flow anywhere. And then also very difficult to receive, because we like this. We constantly stress, constantly pushing ourselves. So when we can soften in that space, if we look at the precepts instead of, more be true to your way and your being, or be your authentic self, then it becomes very playful in a way.
And easier to not worry or anger, and
Yeah,
easier to receive and be grateful.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Well, and then working hard is more fun.
Yeah,
So,
I think so too. Yeah.
because I love our work. So I don't always feel like I'm working hard because
Yeah.
I love the subject that we get to work with every day. But it also is just a reminder to always bring the fun into it and the playfulness. I think childlike wonder. Um,
Absolutely.
Yeah, I
You
was
can see
just
this in
down
his.
at a beach in Southern Oregon, and I walked through this beach. The way the rocks are, they look like oracles. So like I'm walking through the oracle, and I can take this moment and set an intention, and that is exactly what I set the intention for, was to feel and experience more childlike wonder.
Yeah, I think this is all like I like to study these old teachers from China or Tibet or Japan, and they all talk about this childlike wonder, hey, where we don't judge or label it. We look at it and we go, wow, this is, oh wow, and we don't say, oh, this is ugly, or this is the wrong color, and in fact, because I still have this here, um, I do this a lot too in my classes when we look at one of the mantras in Reiki 2. And if you translate it, there's again different ways of translating. But the one translation I like is your natural disposition. And your natural disposition, traditionally in Zen, that means who were you naturally before you put lots of labels on this, right? So, of course, I didn't come out of my mom as Frans, so label Frans. Then they looked at me, I'm a man, and now a man has to behave like this, and then all these other labels come on it. And then, of course, when I put lots of these labels on it, I cannot see anymore this beautiful luminosity. So, my natural disposition is what traditionally means, what is it beyond those labels, right? What is your true essence or your authentic self beyond those labels? For example, I was told I cannot write. So I believed that for a long time until one day, well, bugger off, I'm going to do it anyway.
How many books later?
Yeah, well, that's it. So we have these things, and in Zen, the Zen master would, for example, say, "What were you before you were born, or what was your original phase before your mom and dad, even before that, right?" So, and I think if we can, and then we come back to that childlike wonder where we don't care. We just write, like we write or we draw or we jump up and down or same. There was a jazz festival here in town, and there was these few little kids. Man, it was fantastic. All the adults were a bit like these, and these kids were just having a ball. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to have a ball too. And suddenly, because of the kids' playfulness, all the adults started to join in, and it was just so wonderful to see that actually the kids, by being themselves, gave permission to the adults to be themselves.
It's so true. They it's always, I have a almost 9-year-old, so it's always, and she's in this place where she is, you still see the kid,
Yeah.
but then she's also trying to act a little older. She's in that kind of in between, but yeah, you do see that. We're at the beach right now. So for those of you that normally watch the podcast, I obviously have a different background, which is a virtual background, by the way. Anyways, we're at the beach and she's in the waves and doing cartwheels, and then she loves to find rocks, but like gravel. She's like, look
Yeah.
at this one's so cool, and it's just like a little gravel rock that the rest of us wouldn't even think about. And the little pieces of shell that she picks up, it's not a whole shell that as an
Yeah.
adult we'd be like, well, it's not a whole shell. And she does, she finds that beauty in all of it, and it is contagious. You're like, well, look at that. Like, look at that beautiful little rock that you found, or that
Yeah.
little piece of shell that you found.
Actually, this is, I was teaching many, many years ago on a beach in Australia, and my kid was also still little. And so during one of the big breaks, I went to the beach, and quite a few of the other participants were there. And they were mainly from between 50 and 70. And so at one point, I was holding my kid's hand and we were jumping over the waves when they were coming in. And then suddenly one of the other students came in and participants, and we made this whole long line all jumping over the waves. And then later on, all of them said, without even, like, we haven't had so much fun in years. And you could see them like, wow, I forgot how to be playful. I forgot how. And we all know when we play for what happens to our energy, it starts to flow like crazy. And I think also it's these simple things. And maybe I'm raving on here, but there was another beautiful moment. I was in Japan and I was doing this training, and we were deep in the mountains of Japan. And there is a practice called Goma, and traditionally the fire practice Goma in the temple is very elaborate. So you use very beautiful uh, metal or golden or silver cups and objects and little Buddha statues and all these kind of things. Like it's very elaborate. And I was deep in these mountains, and we come across, me and my teacher, we come across a group of these practitioners who are going to do Goma. And they didn't bring all that stuff with them, and they just started to pick up objects, what each of them liked from the floor of the forest, like a pine cone, what was maybe half a bit funny, or a little crooked stick. And then they started to do it, and it blew my mind. It was, I might even say, even more powerful than with the elaborate things. It was so natural, so organic, that I still get goosebumps of it, because it was just so beautiful, that without the need to have these pretty objects, because who actually makes it pretty is our own mind. Right? And these kids still don't really care if there's a hole in it or broken, or, and but then we go like, oh yeah, but this is not good anymore. Or, and then of course I think also, if I put that even further, then we look at people who are broken, and we say, well, actually maybe we cannot make them our friends, right? I actually just start to have a new friend, and she's going through a really rough time. I met her by coincidence, and she says, Frans, I lost a lot of my friends, and occasionally now, regularly, she comes by, lays on the sofa, cries. I said, I need to do some work, and said, oh, as long as I can be with someone. And I said, oh, it's okay, I don't mind. Is it you don't have enough of me? I said, no, if you I tried to help you, so I did some hands-on healing and those kind of things. I said, do you need anything in return? I said, no, just be yourself. She's quite funny in her sadness at the moment, but when she's not sad, she's really funny. And it's interesting to see, when we see that brokenness in people, sometimes we find it very difficult to actually help. We criticize them more, and say, oh, you should be like this and this, but instead offer them a helping hand or a safe place to be.
Yeah, I'm kind of back to even the childlike wonder too. And one of the things that's showing up for me right now is, in addition to experiencing it, notice the experience. Because as I was going through the beach and going through this oracle and, really engaging in childlike wonder and noticing exactly what you're both talking about, how I actually spent so much time watching the ridge of the sand because the wind was blowing,
Hmm.
and the different patterns of the stones and the spirits that showed up in the rocks. These are massive rocks, so even homes, some of them homes can be built on. And
Wow.
I had to stop myself from emailing these pictures of these rock spirits to everybody. And like, I could just send you a couple. And carrying sticks home from the beach. And Robin's daughter is always bringing me sticks. And then her daughter showed me, had Robin send me a picture of the face in a particular tree where they were camping. And I was noticing it while I was experiencing it, but it's taking me to that place right now to really let that come through from that experience. Like, to
Yeah.
acknowledge it, notice it, be grateful for it, and let it expand within me. Not move. I moved so quickly right back into the busyness that I'm now in this moment remembering today, bring that right back.
I think
Yeah.
this is also so important. I think this is when we think about a hands-on healing session or maybe even attunement. I often say to the students during the class, but particularly when they're about to go, and it's like, okay, keep remembering what you experienced. Like if that's an openness or love or gratefulness or whatever, remember it. I mean, even if you don't practice, like if you find it very difficult, then at least when you wake up, remember, how did that feel? Oh, I felt so soft. Instead of remembering, oh, this is going to be a bad day like this, remember that luminosity again. And I think the more we remember this playfulness, this openness, this luminosity, then that starts to shine more and more through than our pain and suffering and our confusion.
Franz, you have also, as I was saying in the beginning, a very disciplined practice, right? Like your and maybe that's not quite the right word, so I apologize if that's not quite the
No,
right
it's
word.
okay.
But you also, you, like you were saying with your teacher in Japan, like you wake up at 4,
Yeah,
you have this you have these rituals and this deep practice in that way that helps also connect you into Reiki into you. How do you weave those two things together? I guess that joy and playfulness, or I don't really know what my question is, but I also know that that's a part of what you share about your practice. And I know what a lot of people connect to as well. We talk about
yeah.
all of these different ways that we connect into Reiki, and that is a way that a lot of people connect into Reiki. So can you talk a little bit about that part of your practice as well?
Yeah. Let me, interesting that you say, because a lot of times I get from people come and do the classes, etc. They say, oh, we really like your normalness. So I think sometimes, and I don't try to offend anybody, sometimes I think we try to be too spiritual.
Yeah. We say the same thing about ourselves. Like, we're just
Oh,
real
yeah.
people,
And
real life
there's no
Reiki.
need to be spiritual.
Yeah.
Spiritual is right here, in
Yeah.
the midst of
Yeah.
this crazy world. And it's not that we have to be holier than whole. For me, it's actually in that playfulness, in that right here, today. I think for me, that word today is so beautiful and has so many different layers. So I think also I'm a little bit OCD. So if you come in my house, I have everything a little bit in its right order.
Okay.
Keeps my mind also in the right order.
But people,
And
like you said, people connect with that. They can identify with that too. Like, I just
yeah.
have to have things just so, you know.
Yeah, and I'm very open about it. It doesn't, it's not confusing for me, and I don't mind if someone, I have some friends who know that they come in and they shuffle everything around while they leave, or when I'm in the bathroom, and then I don't mind, actually, it's quite funny. But it also, I think that has given me some structure that I go, okay, I need to make sure that I do my practice. I remember, and I've not really told many people this, but when I was young, there was for a while where I had to do things 3 times. And then my mom was very, she was a midwife, and she sometimes had to work very early in the morning or late at night or whatever. And so sometimes she went to bed early because she had to work late at night. And then I remember sitting as a kid in the house, and we had a very small house, and she would close the windows, lock the door, and all these kind of things, particularly in winter. And then she would go to bed. And then 10 minutes later, she'd come back and check all the doors again. Like, and as a joke, I used to call it Fort Knox. As well, we're living in Fort Knox, right? And then when I started to live by myself, I started to do the same pattern, and it got completely out of hand, because then I got so fearful. Actually, crazy again. I haven't told this to too many. I had to look in the kitchen cupboards to see if there was anybody hiding or something. And so I realized at one point this is a bit crazy. So I have to change this pattern. And so I made a conscious decision to change that pattern and to be more open, etc., etc. So I can see if I don't really practice, then sometimes we can spin out of control, and particularly maybe how I was brought up or how I'm built, who knows? So for me, the practice also gives a lot of stability in my daily life, that I find routine a very calming aspect for me. So that's a routine of sitting down or the routine of practicing. Sometimes when I teach and travel, I stay with friends, and then they say, "Oh, we know your routine. You wake up, you have a shower, you're gonna sit behind your laptop, do first all your emails and social media, and then we eat a croissant and have coffee. You'll be fine." But because sometimes we have to build that routine, and I think if I look at these monasteries also, they work very much on routines, because when we do a routine, it becomes very easy to keep the practice going. And so that's been super helpful for me.
I like
And
that.
then,
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
no, and then I think one of the things, of course, I do my daily practice, whatever that might be, sitting on the pillow. And then one of the most important things, what my teacher in Japan, my Taoist teacher, the Tibetan teachers who I met in Darjeeling, all said exactly the same thing. Frans, don't forget to bring your practice into your daily life. So this is actually the most important element, because then there is more continuation of your practice. And normally, I think we practice for, say, half an hour, and then the next day we practice for a half an hour, and there's a 24-hour gap. But if I practice moments, just maybe for a moment, remembering this childlike nature, or remembering that openness or that joyfulness or that playfulness, like this, and then if I do these little moments through the day, then in fact there is more continuation. That makes sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, stability.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's the word that I really noticed too, Colleen. That's what I was going to say. I really like that word, and understanding a ritualistic practice, that, and this, how you do that is that it brings stability. because and especially the both of us were kind of a little bit of the opposite of, not necessarily having that very structured way of doing things. And I mean, we're structured people, obviously, but
Yeah.
we're not just like out here loosey goosey, but at the same time, our practice isn't quite as that same
Yeah,
level of structure. But I like that understanding of it keeping you in your stability. And I think that that's because we talk about Reiki really bringing in stability for us as well in our lives.
absolutely.
Many people would even describe us as very stable people. And I think that that's a really beautiful way to describe it that helps me understand how that practice is working for you in that way.
Yeah, I think that's stability. Actually, I have here this is my favorite. This is my travel companion, Weeble Wobble, and Weebles wobble, but they don't fall, right? And I always use this in a class, and I say, what is the reason it doesn't fall over? It's because it's grounded and centered. The weight is at the bottom. And so when we talk about the hara or the tanden or the root chakra, doesn't matter, then most of the time we're so in our head that if something happens, we fall over and we stay angry and worried and fearful for years on end. But when we stay really grounded, and then something happens, and I like this too because it's quite playful, but it's also very flexible, right? It's stable, but it's also flexible at the same time. And I think this is such a, for a lot of people, when they see it, they can relate to it.
Yes, absolutely. One of our really big mantras that we do, every week we have a distance Reiki share and a pretty good community that joins us. And our mantra, especially since 2020, has been stay stable, be kind.
Yeah,
And so in the middle of the day in that practice, sometimes if I find myself in that weeble wobble moment, it's like just stay stable, be kind. I bring Reiki in, even in one breath, if I only have a moment for that one breath
yeah.
to take that in and move back into that stability.
I think this is why the breath and as I saw your movement there in the body, and because the body is right here, the body is not in the past or in the future. The breath, we also don't have a past breath and a future breath, so the breath is also here, except the mind most of the time is in the past or in the future. So if we, for one brief moment while we're busy at work or have a coffee or there is something happening between you and your partner, take a deep breath, focus on your body already in the present moment because the breath and the body is in the present moment. So this is also in the precepts we see the word Shinshin Kaizen. And Shinshin Kaizen means mind body harmony. And so normally, of course, as I say before, our mind is busy with the past things. And when we look, for example, at do not anger, then anger is most of the time what happened 1 minute ago or 10 years ago. Then when we look at the future, then that's worry, what's going to happen in 1 minute time or 10 years time. So do not anger and do not worry actually means don't get distracted by the past and the future. And then we have gratefulness. And what are we most of the time not grateful for what we have right now, right? So that's the present moment. And so we can really, if we look at these deeper layers within the Reiki precepts, we see some wonderful teachings. What actually reflects also the breathing practices and the body practices. If we're very conscious of putting our hands on the body, then automatically we anchoring our mind in the present moment. Already that softens that worry or stress or tension all by itself.
Can you talk a little bit more about the anger and worry? I like the way you describe that is the anger is probably something either the last moment or 10 years ago, and the worry is what is out ahead. Because I think also then and that ideal of being spiritual, sometimes people worry that if they feel anger, they are no longer being spiritual, or if they're worried, they're not being spiritual.
Yeah.
So, how we merge the consciousness of being human and having emotions with also that ability to observe maybe what the anger is or observe what the worry is. So can you
Yeah,
just
I
talk a
mean,
little bit more about your perspective of that?
I'm just reading this book, and it's by one of my favorite Zen masters, and it's Becoming Yourself, Sunraya Suzuki. This is he passed away already, but this is a new book from his teachings. And in it, in fact, I was just reading it. He was talking about anger, and there's one quote. I'm not sure if I got it here. No, I don't think so. But oh yeah, I might have actually. It's actually really great. I really liked it, and that really has to do with uh, the anger element. Can I find it? Oh yeah, yeah. We don't say that anger is no good. Anger is just anger, that's all. But if you have some excuse for being angry, that is not just anger. Unless you have practice and understand our way, it is rather difficult to just anger. Like a thunderstorm. Kihi, next moment nothing. That is beautiful. Rah, that's all. I wish I could be like that. So, um, it's what he's really saying is that when we angry, most of the time, we're not just angry. We angry, but then we carry that anger with us, right? So something upsets us, and we might need to be angry for some reason, but then an hour later, we're still angry. We haven't dropped it. And this is a beautiful Zen story, what I like. And it says two monks walk through the forest and they come across this woman who is a little bit upset and she's crying and said, what is happening? Well, I can't cross the river because the bridge is gone and then my beautiful kimono is all going to be destroyed. So the one monk says, don't worry, I carry you across. And this other monk said, no, we're not allowed to touch women and blah, 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 like this. So he doesn't care. He grabs the woman, puts the woman on his shoulders, and he carries her across the river. Woman is super happy. Bye bye. An hour later, the one monk, he said, how could you carry the woman? And he's really angry with the other monk. And the other monk goes, carry the woman? Carry the woman? He said, I put her down an hour ago. You still carry her. And this is what we normally do, right? We carry our anger with us. And so do not anger doesn't mean suppress it. We can be angry, but then as soon as we're done, drop it. But that's really difficult to do. So this is why we do these meditation practices and hands-on healing and all of these elements within the system of Reiki. But yeah, so uh, I, and then of course we can go deeper because the word not in Japanese or no in these kind of traditions actually means emptiness. And so what it means is that we feel that anger coming up, but because we feel it's actually empty, and then normally we would grab it and then we get carried away with it. But because we feel more this spaciousness, then the anger comes up, and because we're not grabbing it, it actually subsides by itself, like a wave. Or another wonderful quote I like also, it's not in this book, but of Sunraya Suzuki, and he says, you leave the front door open and the back door open. Your thoughts and emotions and feelings come in through the front door and then out of the back door, but in the middle, don't serve them tea. But this is what we normally do, right?
Spend time in the story
Yes,
about the
absolutely.
anger.
Yeah.
That is such a great analogy. So then, Also, because we hear so many different translations or adaptations of the precepts. So, what I hear you say is the word not has a very specific purpose.
Yes,
Do not
particularly
be,
from
just for
Japanese
today, do
perspective.
not be angry.
Yeah. So the not actually points to that emptiness. And that is that when we realize that deep inside of ourselves, then of course, sometimes I explain it a little bit like this. For example, I have here a little bowl. If I'm very narrow-minded, like I'm very like this, and then one thing happens, and then another thing happens, and then this happens, and now I'm overwhelmed. So very quickly to get upset, worry, anger, etc. But if I realize that my essence is this wide open spaciousness, like for example, if we want to check the beginning or end of our mind, we cannot find it. So that means ultimately it's very spacious, right? And so if I now look at these three objects from this very spacious viewpoint, say, for example, the universe, it's huge, right? Also no beginning and end, then they don't change, but my perception changed. So they suddenly, from the perception of the universe, they are super small. Then why am I worried about something or why I'm angry about something? So this is really what the word not traditionally means in these Zen or Tendai Buddhist teachings, and often therefore um, used in certain precepts in Japan.
Okay, I did not have an understanding of that before. Thank you. And since we're talking about the precepts, because for me, gratitude is the pathway to all of it. If I
Yeah,
am in gratitude, I'm probably not angry, I'm probably not worried. Gratitude, I think, while noticing beauty, often will take me to the experience of gratitude. So how it all builds on itself and how Reiki actually helps us get there. And I'll use the example of I can't remember when it was that a book came out about, gratitude practices, like write 10 things a day that you're grateful for. And at first, I had a really hard time thinking
yeah.
about 10 things I was grateful for. I don't remember what I was in. It had to be like 20 years ago. And I don't remember what cycle I was in my life at that moment. But I do remember the experience of like, okay, I'm having to effort about this gratitude.
Yeah.
So can you talk about that one?
Yeah, I think I did the same thing many, many years ago. We might have had the same book, I think.
Same time. Yeah.
I can't remember what it was, but yeah, we did it after dinner. We were like, what are we grateful for today? I think also one of the most important elements is about being grateful. I think again, there's many different layers, but first of all, grateful that we wake up in the morning, like because that is not for certain. I know many people who have went to sleep at night and didn't wake up in the morning. Quite a few aunties or uncles have had this, unfortunately. Um, so that actually we wake up in the morning, and of course, then we're grateful for the physical body. So that also being brings us really in the present moment. And then I think also being grateful. We often think about first of all, we think about good things, right? But I think also when we start to include the not so good things, and here, this is a story. It was quite amazing. I was in New York years ago, and I was eating at that big place, Italy.
Mm.
And it's a beautiful little restaurant. I was a big restaurant, but I was sitting there, and there's two women, a little bit younger than me, and a young kid, and they ordering next to me, and they were served earlier, and it looked really nice. So I turned my head around and said, "Oh, what are you ordering? Looks nice." And the woman said, "Oh, do you want a taste?" So she gave me a few little tastes, and okay, that's nice. And then we started to chat. And then she explained that she had cancer. And she said, "I'm so grateful for my cancer." And I said, well, actually, we talked about this in the class today and explained a little bit what we did. I said, can you explain to me, why did you say that you were grateful for your cancer? He says, well, because of the cancer, I realized that I had a job was what way too stressful, so I quit my job. I was in a toxic relationship, so gone is the husband. And then she went on and she said, I feel so much better. She said, I still have cancer, but I have not been like this happy in my life for a long time. And I'm like, wow, this is really also what being grateful is about. Sometimes we don't see it. And so grateful for me is also really being grateful what happens to us in the present moment, because a lot of these things can also be lessons for us.
Yes. And I do find that I can be grateful internally and sometimes as a state of being and not always feel that way.
Yeah.
Like I can have a duality of that in the moment, but I think it's that same idea of don't carry it with me.
Yeah.
Recognize the difference. One is a feeling, one is a state of being.
Absolutely. And I like that you say that, that state of being. Hey, we come to that being Reiki again, or being kind, or again, we don't do gratefulness, or we don't do kindness. We be kind, or we be grateful. And so for me, that is also, yeah, what ultimately I think, again, when we compare today and grateful, that in every action we do, we should be grateful no matter
Okay.
what happens to us. But
So
tricky, this is tricky.
yeah, the
Right.
duality.
That's why the
Yeah,
practices really help.
Yeah.
And
absolutely.
we're
Yeah.
so glad for Reiki energy to help us with the practices.
Yeah, absolutely.
Bring us back to that kind of anchor point
Yeah.
when
Yeah,
we're off in that duality.
The bottom of the weeble wobble.
But we're
yeah,
grateful for the duality as well, because that is
absolutely.
also
Yeah,
unique to the human experience, is that
yeah,
duality. And we have light and dark, but because of the dark, we get to experience the great light.
absolutely.
Mm.
Yeah.
And
And
I
I think this is the beauty also of the system of Reiki. There's so many of these layers and so many of these teachings. We could talk for days about it in a way.
I think we do. We
Yeah.
talk for days about it. We talk for days about it.
Yeah.
And you write books about it. Well, let's even segue into your book. You just republished
Yeah.
The Inner Heart of Reiki. So tell us all about that.
Yeah, actually, I just 2 days ago I received the first copy of it. So yeah, here it is, and it's great because we decided to actually make it in the same vein as the Way of Reiki,
You
and
did.
then maybe one day I make a box set of a few books or something like that. That would be cute. So for me, the Inner Heart of Reiki was very much my first book, what I wrote by myself, and very much about actually what we've been talking about and the experiences while I was doing my training in Japan and those ideas and those concepts. So, what I also really like, and that's my style of particularly writing these books and also blogs, because I like looking at traditional Japanese teachings of Tendai Buddhism, of Shugendo, and Zen priest. And then when we, for example, look at some of these teachers who are around at Mikusui's time, then how does that relate to Mikusui's teachings? Because then we get a really clear image. So I also use quite a few of these quotes within my books to point out, look, actually these Zen masters or this particular Tendai teachings says exactly the same. So for example, we have a practice called Hatsureo in the system of Reiki, which is a meditation practices using the breath, etc. And it's a very simple, similar practice in Tendai Buddhism. So, when we can look at these similarities, then we also start to see why Mikusui put it in it. And what I like to point out also in my book is that ultimately, no matter if we look at the precepts, hands-on healing, the symbols and the mantras, the attunement, and the meditation practices, that they all point to one and the same thing, and that is that inner luminosity, that inner playfulness, or this inner light, um, and to hopefully to make it as simple as possible for people to understand that as well.
I think that does also go back to the understanding of the fourth precept is really allowing it to teach us the simplicity.
Yeah. I think our life is already so difficult, right? Poof. And then I like also like when I work with these teachers in Japan, it's difficult, it's very challenging, but at the same time there is also a simplicity to it. And for example, I do this sometimes in a class, and I say, okay, everybody, show me how you touch the universe. And then some people go like this, and some people go like this, and some people go like that, and some people, I don't have to do anything because I'm touching it already. I said, that's the end of the class. Great. Because in reality, there is some old teachings in Tibetan Buddhism, and they also have similarities in Japan. But one of that is it's so simple we don't believe it. It's so close we cannot see it, because it's like we cannot see our own eyes. If I go like I need to look in a mirror, but so it's so close, and sometimes we just don't believe it due to these layers, right? We put over ourselves, over that beautiful bright sphere, then we think it's somewhere very far away. But for example, Reiki 2 traditionally is called Okuden, and Okuden traditionally means hidden or inner teaching. So we have to go inside to actually find what is hidden in there. And normally we project a lot of these things outside. So when we look at these meditation practices, we go within. Traditionally, a lot of these symbols and mantras are pointers to within our own state of mind. And then when we start to do this, then for me, that then we can easily take it then into our daily life, because I cannot always chant a mantra, or I cannot always visualize a symbol. I can also not always do hands-on healing 24 hours a day, but I can carry my mind with me of kindness, compassion, gratefulness in all I do. And then automatically, then we're practicing maybe 24 hours a day, hopefully one day. And that is really also what I try to explain in my books, going to the heart of that element.
Well, and key, right? Life
Yeah,
force energy within all of us and
yeah,
everything. And that is not, it is outside of us because everything contains it, but it's
yeah,
also within us. And that's,
absolutely. Yeah.
within the name.
Yeah. Yeah, so yeah, it's yeah, I quite like. First of all, actually, I started to write first for myself because it helped me to formulate the concepts for myself, then how I could relate it to students. And then I was reading it, hey, this actually looks pretty good. Maybe I should, particularly with the inner heart of Reiki, maybe I should write a blog about it. And then I kept writing, and it goes like, actually, maybe this should be a book.
Really, is that how the process worked?
And for me, particularly the inner heart of Reiki, yeah, that was an interesting. The way of Reiki was very different. Well, no, it's similar, but I wrote that very quick in a way. I locked myself in my house, wrote from 6 in the morning to midnight, and yeah, almost a week later that was done.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, that's amazing.
but yeah, I'm not so good with writing So if you would say, Franz, write something about this or this, then I'm not so, it needs to really bubble from, and for me, I was so ready. I could feel it for like a few weeks. Maybe I should write another book. And then suddenly I go like, okay, bye everybody. I lock the door and see you as soon as it finished.
Well, do you think that is what Reiki is trying to teach us now is the everyday living of it, the simplicity of it. And I think that again, so much of the previous age of humanity has been more about spiritual practices being difficult, very serious rituals, diligence, hard work, and then the outside authority, where it sounds
Yeah.
like you are working with Reiki with that inner truth, you know, true self expression. And I think that's what you're saying this book is also about.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, I was in London a month and a half ago or something like that, and I was attending a teaching in the evening by a Tibetan teacher, Ringu Tulku. And previous I'd read a book by him, but he also has this wonderful video about kindness, and it was just he was so simple, so clear. I think the video is 7 minutes long, and he talks about this kindness in such a profound way that he goes like, I mean, no one wakes up in the morning and says, I hope someone is going to be angry with me, or so I hope someone is going to be nasty to me. No one is waking up like this. So let's be kind. And he said, if everybody in the world now decide to be kind, then we have peace on earth today.
Yes.
It's actually that simple. And I go, wow. In fact, why do we make it difficult?
Right.
Right?
It is.
Imagine that everybody today decides, excuse my language, I don't know, at the F word,
Yeah.
all, and let's just from today on, all be just kind to each other. Wow, today the world will be completely different, right?
Probably why we're not in charge, Franz.
Yeah, absolutely. They might think we're absolutely crazy.
What? Just be kind.
Yeah,
Be stable, be kind.
but
Powers that be don't think that way.
no, unfortunately not. But it's a
Well,
strange thing, huh? So for me, actually, also when I look at the Reiki precepts, for me, Mikasui was saying this is a way of life, and this is a way of transforming the world into a peaceful society.
yes. Well, it's one of the reasons I'm so excited with the technology today that we can reach out individually and create communities of people around the world that really do think this same way.
Yeah,
I think the majority of people do think the same way and do want kindness. They do want to be loved. We all want the same things, safety,
absolutely.
shelter, and, good things for ourselves and our children and our families and each other and the animals and all of the above. And so I love that we have, you're in Amsterdam, Robin is on the coast in Oregon, and I'm in outside of the city near the mountain, and we can all talk and we discover that
Yeah,
actually I think there are more of us who think this way.
absolutely. And I think this is so wonderful that you both do these kind of interviews and sharing it. I think we need to hold more hands with each other and say, hey, look, we can be together. We can teach slightly different or have a different approach, but who cares as long as we kind to each other, be open in that space. It doesn't matter. There it is no competition because that's only in our mind. And just be caring and loving and share that energy, share it freely as much as possible when you walk around town and smile, be kind, help someone if they are in need, or maybe they're not in need, but just want to hear a nice word or a kind word.
It's so true. Just treating people that way. And like I say in my own experience of it, the more I am conscious of being kind, the world really does reflect that back. I
Oh,
do find,
absolutely.
yeah, I
Yeah.
live in that reciprocal energy that people are kind back.
Absolutely. I mean, I go to this restaurant here. Like, I live close to town and it's quite a lot of restaurants, but I've been going to this one particular restaurant recently, a little bit more than I usually would go. And there's a guy working there. He's got a girlfriend. And now when I walk by, he comes over and he's like, "Hi, darling," and he gives me a hug. And I'm not, and you see him smile and he said, "When are you coming again? Last night was so much fun. We laughed so much." And I think already like this, then already healing, already Reiki, already that playfulness or this childlike wonder. Doesn't matter who we are or whatever way we want to be, then just be kind. And I found it so beautiful. And the other day, a friend of mine from England came and visit, and we walked to town. He said, "Frans, all these people are coming to say hello to you," or they say, I said, "Yeah, but if you're kind, automatically other people are going to be kind to you. If you walk around town like this, no one you have to start somewhere. So you first start to share." And I think the Dalai Lama has this wonderful teaching and says, if you feel depressed, start to help other people. Because if we start to help other people, we take the focus off ourselves. And therefore we feel actually less. And when we help other people, they're going to be kind to you because it's this mutual interconnectedness.
It is how it makes a difference. Oh, go ahead, Robin.
I was just going to say to our kind of conversations about being spiritual, and to me, that is spirituality. Because
Absolutely.
what
Yeah.
else does any of it matter? You know, it's like
Yeah.
that's the core of it right there. And
Yeah.
even though we might, seem normal or whatever, to me, that's the essence of how to be spiritual, regardless of what spirituality we practice, what
Yeah.
religion we might be, what we do when we find kindness in others, or we receive kindness from others. I have some childhood friends that practice entirely different forms of their religion and spirituality, but it's a very kind form. And I think I look at them and I think, look at the lovely, loving energy that you're putting out into the world. And to me, that's the true spirituality. And however we get there, however our practices get us to that place, to me, that's what changes ourselves and changes the world.
Yeah, I thank you for saying that because for me that is also you said it so beautiful because this is really what it's about. This is what spirituality is about. In simple words, it's kindness. Just be kind. Yeah.
And we all need different practices to get ourselves there, to to get those labels off, to help us to not walk around like this, to help us to walk around with the openness and
Absolutely.
all of
Yeah.
that. Yeah.
Well, I think for me too, it is what leads to gratitude. So they work together because gratitude, I feel more kind, but kindness also really increases my gratitude.
But this is it. When we look at the precepts, I think you mentioned it before. When we grateful, automatically we less angry and worried. So for me, they're not just one line and then the next line is completely separate. They're all interconnected. We cannot take one away because then the whole concept falls apart.
There's
Yeah.
no beginning or end, like you said earlier.
Yeah, absolutely. It's almost like those beautiful Zen circle, eh?
Exactly. Well, Franz, why don't you go ahead and share how people can get a hold of you? Also, your book, when it's coming out, where people can get it. And so that we'll also, of course, for those of you that are listening, we'll have this in the show notes. So you can go there and just click, but why don't you go ahead and share where we were
And
at?
your
Yeah.
classes, your upcoming classes
Oh
too.
yeah, and your upcoming class.
Okay.
Yeah, talk about
Lots
those
of that.
too.
Yeah. So, yeah, the International House of Reiki, you can Google that. Frans Stiene. The website is IH Reiki. The H is for International House of Reiki. And yeah, soon in September, beginning September, I teach a 2-day Reiki retreat in Berlin, in Germany. And then in end of September, beginning of October, I'm teaching in Sydney, Australia, also a retreat and a Shimpadon Reiki 3 class. And then November, end of October, beginning of November, I'm teaching a Shimpadon and also a retreat in Cheltenham in the UK. And then, of course, preparing for next year. So, but that's a whole long story.
Well, and you
And
post regularly on social media
yeah,
too. So is that what you were going to say, Robin, is how do people find you on social media?
yeah, I was just gonna say you can find all the dates and everything at the website,
Yeah,
and then your
website.
Facebook. You're pretty active on Facebook and Instagram, which is IH Reiki.
Yeah, so the Instagram is Stine Frans, the other way
Okay.
around. And then I also have Frans Stiene on Facebook and the International House of Reiki on Facebook.
Yeah, and like I said, we'll put that all in the show notes so people can find you
Thank
there.
you.
When your book is coming out September 2nd.
Yes,
Okay.
exciting.
I know it's very
Oh,
exciting.
congratulations. So just real quickly, what made you republish it?
I think because after the Inner Heart of Reiki, then we had the Reiki Insight and then the Way of Reiki. And I think sometimes because I think that was the Inner Heart of Reiki was first published, I think almost now, I think 2013. So
Yeah,
time flies.
I know it's
And then
weird.
sometimes, the books are a little bit forgotten. Do you know what I mean?
Yes.
So give it a little bit of a fresh look. And because I think for me, it's still very great teachings. A lot of people have said to me that they really liked it, that they also found things in it what they found very beneficial, but also that they had experienced themselves, but never have found the words to express it. So, yeah, so that's actually why the publisher decided to republish it again with a nice new cover, etc. So, yeah, exciting.
I'm
Well,
excited.
I do think this is the fourth precept of just expressing yourself and being the way of Reiki, and that actually is what we can do. Like I feel
Absolutely.
like
Yeah.
what we can do in the world today, this is what we can do
Yeah, absolutely.
to make that difference.
All right. Well, Franz, thank you so much for joining us.
Yes.
We really appreciate it. And of course, always love our conversations. And
Thank
so,
you.
yeah, we'll have to keep apprised of what you're up to and have you back in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the summer.
Yes.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you so much for listening, everybody. And we'll catch you next time.